Welcome back to the Triple Doink podcast, everybody. My name is Ryan, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend Bryce, the Eric Bledsoe to my Chris Middleton. How are you, Bryce?
Now,
Now,
I would say the George Hill to my.
now, why didn't I include Yanis? That's
Well,
a good question. It's because the Triple Doink podcast itself is Yanis.
but I would argue George Hill is more valuable to the Bucks than Bledsoe.
He's been having a good series, but he's not more valuable
No,
than
I
Bledsoe.
think bench depth is better than up and coming point guard who can't shoot for his life. I like
Bledsoe's.
Bledsoe a lot. Bledsoe's really good at everything except for shooting,
No, he's a pretty good shooter, too.
and he just can't. He also has problems with ball handling, where he just randomly will be like, "Oh, well, they get the ball now, I guess."
Well, that happens to everybody, though.
Yeah, but it happens to Bledsoe like every game, all the time.
Mm,
but
he's a very good defender, too.
yeah, dude, he had like these 3 killer blocks last game.
Hmm.
But I've
Well,
been
anyway,
loving how fast George Hill has been up and down. Like that's the reason why I think the Bucks have a bigger chance to win than anyone else because they have the best bench in the tournament.
yeah, agreed.
That's the
The
only reason why. Like that's all you need. You need to basically have 2 starting rosters.
I mean,
That's
it's not
basically
a
what they have.
coincidence. Last time we did a podcast, the Bucks had just lost game 1 against the Celtics.
Yeah, it's like
And
yeah,
I was saying
gentleman's sweep.
they need to get game 2 and then they need to take at least one on the road, and then they took game 2 and then they won 3 and 4 on the road. And it's not a coincidence that all 3 of those wins the Bucks have been losing at halftime and then gone on a run late in the third quarter and put it away. Like
Yeah,
it's
and
because
in this one, I mean,
The
I think
Celtics can't keep up with the Bucks for a full game. Like they don't have the
the
depth to do it. Their
Celtics starters
tired.
were losing in the third quarter to the bench of the Bucks
Exactly.
because
They
they
were.
were Middleton and Giannis were both at 4 fouls like
Yep.
7 minutes in, and they just benched them for the rest of the quarter, and then they came back and they were 10 points up. It's like, oh, cool. My
Yeah,
team's
I
insane.
believe the team that was on the floor during that run was, I think it was Brook Lopez. He was the
Yeah,
only starter out there.
yeah. The Brock isn't it Brock?
No, it's Brook.
I
Um,
think it's Brock.
dude, who's the one who follows the Bucks? It's Brook.
It is Brook. Jesus. He's so slow. Yeah, it was George Hill, Bledsoe.
No, Bledsoe wasn't even out there. It was
Yeah, he was out there in the late third quarter.
part of it.
Yeah,
But the team I'm talking about that was out there outplaying their starters was George Hill, Pat Connaughton, Ersan Ilyasova, Sterling Brown, and Brook Lopez.
the Bucks have like the same problem that the Packers did this year with like names at star positions. I'm not pronouncing Giannis's last name still. I'm just not gonna.
Antetokounmpo?
Yeah, yeah, whatever floats your boat, buddy. Uh, sorry, I don't speak
Yeah.
Portuguese.
Well, actually, Bucks don't have a lot of tough names to say. It's pretty much just Giannis, and then it's Ersan Ilyasova.
And what about Kana whatever?
Pat Connaughton?
Yeah,
That one's not too hard.
yeah. Regardless, this is the Triple Doink podcast.
Yeah, where we talk about NBA basketball, apparently. um, yeah.
Yeah, Curry's
The
been
other
having a bad.
the other good thing about the Bucks is that they're up 3-1 in the series now, and
Yeah,
the other 3 series are all tied at 2. So that gives the Bucks an advantage if they can finish it out in Game 5. And
yes, that is how math works.
yeah, I mean it gives them the advantage in rest, that is, over the next round opponent, the 76ers or the Raptors, whoever wins that series.
I think is either way they're gonna whoop ass. Like
Well, yeah, I
the
mean,
Bucks, I think are just way better than everyone else in the East, and I think the West, especially if Golden State falls to the Rockets, like I think the Bucks are clear favorites in my opinion.
yeah. Well, on one hand, I kind of want to see them play Golden State because nobody believes the Bucks are really the best team. everyone's saying the Warriors are, and I'd like to see them beat Golden State, prove everybody wrong.
Yeah. I mean, if it happens that way, it happens that way. But like, if you winning a final, you're the best team. That's the way that everyone has decided on who is the real best team. Which
Yeah, but
I know like there's a lot of like bullshit in that, but that's why there's a final. It's to see who is the best team. So
I mean, you're right, but at the same time,
again, yeah, I know.
It's really on my radar that that the national media seems to give like no credit whatsoever to the Bucks. It's ridiculous. It's like every article that I see from a national outlet since the Bucks pretty much since the game 2 win against the Celtics, every article that I've seen, with the exception of one or two, has been taking the angle, what happened to the Celtics? How did they fall apart like that in the
because
third quarter?
Everyone there's way more Celtics fans than there are Bucks fans. That's just it. They're trying to get money and they're trying to get traction. And a headline, the Bucks are back. What do you mean the Bucks are back? No one roots for the Bucks.
Yeah. I understand that, but it's
yeah, it can be frustrating. But
it is frustrating.
You're an underdog. Live up. Come on, own it. You are the
but seriously though, a team with 60 regular season wins is an underdog.
Yes.
I mean, give me a break.
Yeah.
It was the same thing, by the way, with the Brewers last year when they were in the middle of their playoff run. It was always like, well, why
did everyone else suck?
Yeah, exactly. No, it was like, well, the Brewers got lucky to catch the Cubs and win the division. No, they didn't. They had a hell of a month of September. I mean, it just bothered me.
Wisconsin fan woes.
And it's funny, it doesn't happen with the Packers because the Packers have been good for so long, or they were at least.
They've been. This is what happens when you got Hall of Fame quarterbacks back to back. People get kind of used to you being good.
Well, maybe in a year or two, the Yanis will generate the same sort of effect.
Yanis is the best player in the league right now.
I believe he is.
Like, the only people who can dispute that are people who think that the beard is somehow better. But
by the way, also on my radar, I watched
not as good of a passer.
That's true. I watched like part of the start of the Rockets Warriors game last night because it came on right after the Bucks Celtics, and just in the short time that I was watching, I saw like several possessions where the Rockets would bring the ball up the floor, and James Harden would just be standing around at the perimeter or like barely past half court, just waiting for the play to happen. And then they would either like...
Well, I don't like when people look at basketball and criticize people. Like, they'll see a play, right? And they'll just see a player not doing anything and think that they're, like, doing something wrong. When, in reality, basketball is, like...
But, like, here's
a lot of scenarios play again and again the same exact way.
I understand that. And it's one thing to, like, come up to a designated spot where you're supposed to be on that play and wait for the play to develop. But it's another thing to just like barely cross half court and just stand there watching the play happen. And that's what Harden did a couple of times.
I think and then, that like when you it's just one of those scenarios where I just think that he knows the outcome of this play 99% of the time is going to be this, and he would rather just conserve his energy for something that he can assure will be positive for him. And that's what superstars do. Like, LeBron James does the same thing, and I don't criticize him ever when you see him on defense just kind of look there dumbfounded because the play broke down and someone on his team did an assignment wrong, so he looks like the idiot.
Yeah.
That, like, I don't criticize superstars.
It
for a
bothers
reason.
me.
They're smarter than everyone else on their team.
It bothers me that Harden's going to get the MVP over Giannis at this point.
Not.
I mean,
no, he's no way. I don't see that.
I think it'll happen.
No way.
Because it's already been decided.
Yeah, I thought Yanis got it. I thought Yanis.
No, they don't announce it.
I know they
until
haven't
June.
announced it. I know, but I thought Yanis actually.
I mean, I think he should have gotten it. I think he should get it, but I feel like Harden's going to get it because he plays for Houston and they get a lot more attention than Milwaukee, even though the Bucks are the number 1 team in the NBA.
The NBA right now, I don't know. MVP voting doesn't really show as much bias as like an NFL or MLB. The NBA is actually pretty good at giving it to the actual best player and not just the most popular player. Like the fact that Drew who won MVP last year for NFL? Mahomes, yeah, it was Mahomes. I didn't think Mahomes should have won it.
Patrick Mahomes 100% deserved that MVP, Bryce.
Nah, he was the top 2. But I thought Aaron Donald definitely should have gotten it.
Well, okay.
Aaron Donald was way better.
If you want to make the argument that the quarterback should be a separate award from MVP, and you should give a best non-quarterback award as well, then fine. But if you're talking about who brought the most value to their team,
Aaron Donald.
Mahomes.
Aaron Donald brought more value than Patrick Mahomes did.
Okay, we're not here to rehash this debate. We can talk about it in a few months when they're both vying for MVP again.
I'm worried for Mahomes. I don't think there's a possibility the Chiefs are not good at all.
Yeah, I'm worried for him too. And it sucks because I really want somebody to take down the Patriots.
He's actually going to... no, there are a few teams that can take down the Patriots, one in their own division.
I know, but the more people you have in the field, the harder it is to beat the field, you know?
You don't spread it out. You just jam-pack one team and just, look at this. They got...
Okay, that's what the AFC was last year. They jam-packed the Chiefs, and then the Chiefs still lost.
No. Think about it. You have the Chiefs, which is a team that always consistently fails in the playoffs. Now we got a team that doesn't make the playoffs that looks good. The Browns.
Yeah, how are they
so
gonna
if
do
they
any better?
make the playoffs, there's no history there. Think about it. This is narrative writing at its finest. Just skew data points until it matches your argument. Oh, yeah. I should be a journalist.
Yeah, you should work for John Boyce and do a chart party.
Oh, I would love that. I would love to help John. Do you even do the boring research where, dude, have you seen his Bob video?
I did see the Bob.
Oh, that's so good. Bob Gibson.
I'm waiting for the second one to come out.
It's one of my favorite videos I've ever seen by him.
I mean, who even thinks to track something like that?
There have been this many Bobs, the era of Bob. Dude, Bob Gibson, learning about Bob Gibson was one of the most, and I've never heard of him before because I don't follow baseball.
I actually hadn't heard of him either, and I do follow baseball.
He's thinking about that stretch, what was it, 261 pitches? Or was
I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, but just thinking about you struck out that many people in a row. And he would play, he played 27 full games that season. That's insane. He's nuts.
Yeah, it's not done anymore.
Yeah, no. Not only is it, to be fair, is it harder to pitch now? Yeah, because of rules and restrictions that happen. But,
well,
they also play less. They play way less. And it's boring. I think what makes baseball fun is when there's controversy and people start beating the shit out of each other over a ball. That's when baseball's shit, there we go. This is the sport I wanted to watch. I want to see some coke fiends try to beat the shit out of each other because a lot of them are on some shit.
Yeah, back in the 80s,
especially,
there was a lot of...
Lonnie Smith.
Well, the 1982 Cardinals who beat the Brewers in the World Series that year, because the Brewers were still an American League team back then. That team featured a number of people on coke, including Lonnie Smith.
Yep. And yeah.
You're
telling me cocaine isn't linked to baseball. There's no. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So anyway, I guess we should probably talk about football now.
Yeah, Champions League's going on. You're right.
So anyway,
What, you're not gonna give me props for that joke? Are you serious?
no, that was fine. It feels
Aw.
like you're retreading a joke that I made a couple weeks ago.
Really? Did you make a
yeah.
Champions League joke?
No, but like when you were trying to get us back on the topic of football, and I just went and kept talking about Half-Life, and like I feel like
Nah, I don't know.
it's been done. We need to move on now.
I mean,
Bryce, you're really holding up the whole show.
man, yeah, because we have so many interesting topics to talk about, like Bears kickers and Jamaal Charles.
Yeah. Oh, and there's one surprise bonus item that I haven't told you about yet.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's exciting.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Okay, so let's talk about Jamaal Charles.
He retired. He's one of my favorite running backs.
Yeah, he signed a one-day contract
that I've watched.
to retire with the Chiefs, which is always a classy move, I think.
Like of the 21st century, he's like my fourth favorite running back.
Okay, who are your top three?
Top three? Frank Gore's up there.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Do I wanna? You see, I had this list, and I'm trying to remember because I know I don't think I had Marshawn Lynch into my top three, but he's up there, too. Because you can't deny that watching Marshawn Lynch play was one of the most entertaining things.
Yeah, it was.
No one recent. I would say, like Frank Gore's definitely number one. Like that guy, watching his career unfold has been fantastic. He's just this guy that's like, I'm gonna get hit and I'm gonna like it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember. Because I grew up a Packer fan, I really liked watching him on Green.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a little that's just a nostalgia childhood. I don't think he was like that good, but
no, he was good, but he had too many fumbling and injury issues.
And then I'm trying to remember Sean Alexander. There you go.
Sean Alexander. Wow. All right.
Seahawks. Yeah, another one.
Okay, but that's like your personal favorite running backs.
Yeah,
like,
just the ones that I grew up watching.
If I were to make that list, like Jamaal Charles would not be particularly high on it. Darren Sproles would be number one though, so
yeah.
You know. But if I'm talking about like
Reggie Bush also would be up there. I really liked watching Reggie Bush play.
Yeah, that was fun his first few years with the Saints. But if I'm making a list of like running backs who make the most like just wow plays, that sort of thing, Jamaal Charles is pretty high up there. In terms of the running backs that I've watched, Adrian Peterson is probably number one, regrettably because he played for the Vikings. But yeah, it's hard to think of anybody else who's like up there between Peterson and Jamaal Charles, to be honest with you.
Yeah. There's not a lot else to say. Just like the guy had a great career, but it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, I liked watching him play a lot. He was always somebody that I really wanted to get in fantasy, but never got. Because he was always one of the top couple of picks in the first round, and I just
remember that one year, right, when Michael Vick came back onto the Eagles.
Yep.
There's this Houston, right, running back that was also that year. That was a rookie, and my dad had drafted late. He loves drafting these.
Oh.
He's the type of guy who he got Michael Vick, and he keeps drafting a bunch of running backs that are like rookies or like second years, and they're just gonna pop off. One of them is he had C.J. Spiller that year, who was okay, and Arian Foster with Michael Vick.
I remember Arian Foster.
He had a game where he literally scored like 300 points because Arian Foster had like 50, and so did Michael Vick, and it's just like, well, shit.
I remember because that year, my brother, who does not follow football really at all, I talked him into playing in my fantasy league, and he drafted his team and didn't know anything about any of his players. So before the season started, as I was like trying to advise him on who to add and who to drop,
Yeah.
I was like, this Arian Foster guy, I've never heard of him. Add this other guy. Drop Arian Foster. And so he dropped Arian Foster, and then when Foster, of course, blew up, it was, I think that's what convinced him to never be interested in football again.
Oh my god.
But yeah, Arian Foster was Arian Foster was a fun one to watch too. And in his prime, he was a lot of fun. It's really too bad that the Texans didn't get more when they had Arian Foster and Andre Johnson.
Yeah.
You know, they needed a quarterback, and they just never got one.
What do you mean, Matt Schaub isn't good enough for you?
Well, the best year that they had was with Matt Schaub at quarterback,
and they went like 9-7 or 10-6, made playoffs, and got knocked out in the wild card.
Did they get knocked out?
Yep.
Was that one of the years that they beat the Bengals?
Okay, maybe that doesn't count. Beating the Bengals shouldn't count.
Beating the Bengals in the wild card round is basically the same as having a first round bye.
Yeah. At least the Marvin Lewis Bengals.
Right, yeah.
Fittingly named the Bungles.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so anyway, I think we're ready to move on from Charles. But yeah. Good for Jamaal.
So are we doing the Bears kickers now, or are we gonna do the surprise?
We're gonna do the surprise item now.
Ooh.
Which is that Isaiah Crowell tore his Achilles.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah. He's out for the season now. So he's the first casualty for off-season injuries.
Did Crowell, who was he signed to?
The Raiders.
The Raiders? Yeah,
so
that's a fitting way to start the season for the Raiders.
He was probably not going to, he wasn't going to be the starter anymore now that they drafted Josh Jacobs, but he was probably going to lead the backup rotation behind Jacobs.
Yeah.
So he was still going to play a role in that offense. So it's unfortunate for the Raiders, but I think they'll manage. They still have a lot of running backs in that room. I think I saw that they're bringing back Doug Martin now with Crowell being hurt. So I think they'll be okay. But yeah, this is the part of the offseason that really sucks, is when players get hurt before the season even starts. So that's our casualty.
There we go. The graveyard begins.
Mm-hmm. Good God, Captain.
Good God, Captain.
Okay, so then we can move on to our last news item.
Are we gonna make Good God, Captain a thing for everyone who gets hurt now?
I think we have to.
I think it's only canon.
I think it's like just season-ending injuries. Like, if somebody is placed on IR, that's a Good God, Captain moment.
So I'm just gonna preempt it. Aaron Rodgers, Good God, Captain.
Ooh. Yeah, I hope not.
It'd be another year.
By the way, if somebody is placed on IR,
hey,
return,
Tampa defensive end Jason Pierre-Paul suffered a potential season-ending fractured neck injury in a car accident. Whoa! I
did not hear that. I just heard that he was in a car accident and had been released from the hospital. I didn't hear the severity of it. That must have just broken.
Good God, Captain.
Yeah.
That happened today, yeah. Adam Scheffler just reported on it. This moment, 11:12 a.m., May 7th. Wow.
Breaking news. All right. Well, good God, Captain. JPP. Although, if it turns out he's okay and he's able to play, that's where we have to bring in. See, that's where you're wrong, kiddo. If you want to understand why we're saying this, go back and listen to Doctors and Dragons.
The few episodes that exist online to this day.
Right. Anyway, so yeah, JPP. He's got a bit of a penchant for these weird off-season injuries. Of course, the fireworks thing that happened a few years ago, lost part of his hand.
Is
On the
that
4th of
why his
July.
hand is like a fucking ball of just like punching right now still?
Yeah, he lost a few fingers in a fireworks accident.
Jeez. This guy, bearer of bad news.
That was when he was still with the Giants.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, JPP. I guess that really should have been our headline news, to be honest, but unfortunately, it just broke 3 minutes ago. So good thing that we spent all that time talking about the Bucks, or we would have missed that. So anyway, the last news item that I have is having to do with the Bears kickers. Now, I would not normally be talking about this at all, but because we're the Triple Doink podcast,
it's required. It's
required. Now,
it's like a religious ceremony.
We still have not explained what the Triple Doink podcast means. That explanation is coming up next week.
I can't
believe it's already here, Bryce.
Wow.
Episode 9 is next week. We're going to talk about the Bears kickers and the Triple Doink. Oh boy.
Good God.
But anyway, the Bears acquired kicker Eddie Panero from the Raiders, and they had 4 kickers competing for their kicker job. They cut 2 of them, Redford Jones and John Barron II.
So Blewett's still alive.
Yep, and they brought in Eddie Panero. So Panero is competing with Chris Blewett and Elliott Fry. And it's strange that I have heard of none of these 5 kickers. Like, prior to this offseason, I had not heard of any of these guys. Usually teams bring in at least one, like, seasoned veteran kicker.
Nah, they got Blewett, dude.
Like, usually they'll bring in, like, a Caleb Sturgis type, you know?
Blair Walsh.
Blair Walsh, or like a...
Dan Bailey.
Dan Bailey, who was the guy from Tampa Bay who was competing with
the old guy with the bald head?
I don't know. He might be the Buccaneers' current kicker, but anyway, teams always bring in one veteran guy in these competitions, and the Bears haven't done that, so that's interesting. But their season really was destroyed by kickers last year, so they need to find a good one if they're going to succeed.
Hopefully he doesn't blow it.
Yep, hopefully. I'm really hoping it's Chris Blewett, only for name value.
In all fairness, is there any other metric to measure it on?
No, because like I said, I've never heard of Eddie Panero or Elliott Fry, so I'm not invested in them at all. But Chris Blewett, I mean, come on. So anyway, that's it for news, so we can move on. And because the news segment was so short this week, we're going to talk about both of the remaining NFC divisions in our predictions, and also because we didn't do one last week because Bryce had to leave early.
Of course.
I'm not mad, by the way.
What you know how to tell when somebody's aggravated? It's when they say things like "I'm not mad, by the way."
I'm just playing it up for the bit, Bryce. I'm not mad at all.
Complete predictions, scheduled order.
Yep. So let's begin with the Dallas Cowboys, I suppose. Unless you have any other breaking news items to discuss.
I've come from the future to say that the Bucks win the finals.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that when it happens. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but I made you Eric Bledsoe before. because he came to us from the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I picked up on that.
Yeah. And really, I should have made myself Yanis. I feel like I'm just that good. But no,
What?
the Triple Doink podcast is Yanis. So that's okay.
There it is.
I feel like the thumbnail, that's our Brooke Lopez. And
the thumbnail is our Brooke Lopez.
yeah, and the all of the listeners, that's our Malcolm Brogdon, because he's injured right now and we don't have any listeners. So yeah.
What do you mean? I thought we had Kyle.
Kyle doesn't count.
Kyle doesn't count?
Kyle, leave a comment if you think you count. Watch, he won't leave a comment. Like,
wow.
All right. So Oh, hang on. I moved slightly and my Ethernet cable came unplugged.
How dare you?
Yeah. I have to remain perfectly still.
Of course.
Okay. Okay,
so
now if I don't
right
move,
now, if you wanna
okay, if I don't move at all, I will remain connected to the internet. All right. So the Dallas Cowboys. Now I started to mention this in a previous podcast episode. I don't remember if it was last week or the week before, but it bothers me that they put so many NFC East games in prime time.
it will always bother you. You don't like the NFC East.
Well, correct. I don't like the NFC East, but it just bothers me that any one division gets that much attention. It
bothers you that people play favorites?
It does. It bothers me that not that people play favorites, but that the league and the schedule makers play favorites. They should not. And I had this idea a while back, and I don't think it would work. This is just a side note, but if you do the math, there's in the first 3 weeks of the season, there's 16 primetime games, because remember they do that extra primetime game in week 1 on doing the 2 Monday night games.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 16 primetime games. That means you could put each team in primetime one time in the first 3 weeks. So my suggestion is do that. Get every team a primetime game in those first 3 games of the season, and then make everything else the rest of the season flexible so that you put the most interesting game in primetime. That's what I would really like to see.
Well, sadly, that's not how that works.
No, that's not how it works. And as a result, we get the Dallas Cowboys
going 9-7.
We get them having 6 primetime games, which is not terrible because they actually were a good team last year, so it makes sense. But we have them going 9-7 this year.
Let's see how they do in primetime. Ooh, they win 5 of 6.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that everyone's going to think they were better than they were.
Mm-hmm. Of course, their primetime wins come against the Eagles, the division rival, the Giants, a division rival, the Vikings, who suck, and the Bills, who suck.
The Vikings in primetime.
Yeah. And who was the other one that I left out? Oh, yeah, the Saints, who we think are iffy this year at best.
They're an unknown. The state of their mind is an enigma.
The inner machinations of their mind.
That is the real quote.
If you're going to quote the greatest show ever, you got to get it right. Yeah, move over Game of Thrones. SpongeBob is the greatest show ever created.
First 3 seasons is gold. I don't know if it's the best show ever, but it is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, the Cowboys suck.
Yeah. So we'll go down game by game. We have them. I think they're splitting with all the division teams, aren't they?
Yeah, because they beat the
Or
Eagle.
oh,
No,
they're
they
sweeping.
sweep the G-Men.
They sweep the G-men.
The
Yeah.
G.
By the way, I did do a
Trademark.
find and replace in this entire document and replace Giants with G-men everywhere.
Of course
So-
you did. Of course you did. That is.
Of course I did.
That is.
So anyway, we have them beating the G-men at home, then losing at the Racists. Then they beat the Dolphins and Saints. That Saints game we talked about when we talked about the Saints. We just feel like that's a matchup thing for the Cowboys.
Losing to the Packers after that, but going on a 4-game win streak against the Jets, Eagles, G-Men, and Vikings, and
Yeah,
which
with the bye
leaves
in the
them at a
middle there.
fantastic record of 7-2, right?
Yeah, 7-2 at that point, and then they
And
just fall off.
Their playoff hopes look almost like guaranteed, and then
They lose at the Lions. What is with us predicting teams losing to the Lions?
we had the Lions going 8-8. Remember?
We did.
So they're a
and the
decent
Lions-
team this year. So think about it. They're a decent team with upset potential.
Okay. Apparently, they're a decent team with upset potential.
Who will guaranteed, undeniably beat the Chiefs.
Yep, week 4.
We have said it, so it must happen.
We will have a massive celebration on this podcast if that actually happens.
Oh, pizza. There'll be hookers. There'll be wine, and there'll be backgammon.
We're gonna have our own podcast.
the
We're gonna have our own podcast with blackjack and hookers.
Futurama quote, yeah.
In fact, forget the podcast. Anyway, so yeah, the actual greatest show ever created, Futurama. Anyway, so they lose at the Lions and at the Patriots. Then they beat the Bills on Thanksgiving at home and lose at the Bears. Lose to the Rams and Eagles, and then beat the Racists to
in a
close out
meaningless Week 17 game.
Yep, meaningless. Well, we haven't talked about the Racists yet, but yeah, it's meaningless.
Yeah, no shit. But yeah, anything else you want to say about them? Because I think it would be very entertaining if they do fumble that hard.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as I've pointed out to Bryce before, and I think we've mentioned on the podcast, the Cowboys don't make the playoffs 2 years in a row under Jason Garrett. It just doesn't happen. And if they go 9-7 and miss the playoffs like this, where they start out 7-2 and then finish the year 2-5, like I feel like
That's
Jason Garrett
poetic.
can get fired.
It's poetic.
Yeah, I think Jason Garrett is done at that point.
And then he'll be the coach of the Buccaneers.
Well, I think Bruce Arians has some staying power.
Yeah.
Assuming that health problems don't get in the way, which they very well could. He's pretty old. But anyway,
in any case, yeah. Now we have an
moving on to
actual
the-
good team in the NFC.
yeah, moving on to the Eagles, the only team I think in this division that I actually like. And
and
I
they
hated
suck
the
in
Eagles
prime
for-
time.
hated the Eagles for a long time. But anyway,
Was it because of that one playoff game with Brett Favre and
Donovan McNabb, yes.
is that really like you had a grudge that deep embedded into you?
Well, it was the thing with that game is that the week before that, of course, as you know, was the famous we'll take I forget the exact quote from Matt Hasselbeck, but it was like, we'll take the ball and we're gonna score. The overtime coin toss. You know what I'm referring to?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and then he threw a pick 6 to Al Harris, of course, in overtime. So,
as you know, the mid 2000s Seahawks would later become one of the biggest disappointments in franchise history because they had Super Bowl potential like twice, and they
well,
failed.
they did.
They made
They
the
did
Super Bowl,
make-
and then
yeah,
that was such a bad game. They had zero chance of beating the Steelers in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Are you
Fun
kidding
fact:
me?
I was actually in Orlando when that Super Bowl happened.
Is that where the Super Bowl was?
No.
Oh.
Why? There's no NFL team in Orlando. Why would the Super Bowl be there?
Maybe they're in a college stadium. You never know.
Anyway,
maybe an AFL team.
But anyway, that week prior to the Eagles-Packers game was the pick six by Al Harris, and that game was the first football game that I ever watched all the way through. The Seahawks-Packers game. And so I was finally like into football, and then the next week the Eagles knocked the Packers out of the playoffs.
I remember back then I thought I was bad luck, so I wouldn't watch the games because I thought the Packers would win if I didn't watch it.
Bryce, you are bad luck.
This is why you see. Now you realize why I'm not a Packer fan. It's the long con.
Yeah, the long con.
Funny thing though, it's like the second I stopped being a Packer fan, they just missed the playoffs 2 years in a row.
So anyway, that's why I kind of held a grudge against the Eagles. But then when the Packers,
they were just a fun team to root for, and they were actually like good to watch, and they almost beat the Patriots. And when that time, Donovan McNabb was one of the most entertaining quarterbacks to watch, and he's actually fantastic, and people underrate him to this day.
Yeah, Donovan McNabb was fun to watch. I'll agree with you. I think the Eagles, I turned around on them the first season that Michael Vick started for them when the Packers.
So you're not gonna. All right.
The Packers knocked them out of the playoffs en route to a Super Bowl win, and that was when I kind of forgave the Eagles.
So this is what I'm getting at. So you hate the Eagles, right? Right, all throughout the 2000s, but then they hire a dog fighter, and you're like, they're not half bad. Am I getting at something here, Ryan? Is there some pastime that you you have to go on these? You don't like talking about your free time a lot. I'm starting to raise some questions.
Okay, so here's the thing.
Okay.
Michael Vick was a lot of fun to watch on the field.
The moment he stepped off the turf, it's just like I don't
care for what he did off the field. Dogfighting is obviously wrong.
Is it obvious? I don't think it was obvious to Michael Vick.
I think he knew.
And because of the dogfighting, the Eagles will go 13-3, beating the racists in Week 1.
Yeah. By the way, the Eagles have 5 primetime games.
And lose 3 of them in the beginning of the season. Where they're all away against the Falcons, Packers, and Cowboys. All teams that have an above 8-win record, 2 of which make the playoffs. I think the Falcons make it as the 2nd seed, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, though, that the Eagles start the season, they go 13-3. But all of their losses come on the road in prime time. That's just kind of an interesting coincidence.
And they're all like playoff implication games too. Yeah.
So they beat the racists at home, lose at Falcons on Sunday night. They then beat the Lions at home, lose to the Packers on Thursday night in Green Bay. Beat the Jets at home, Vikings away, lose to the Cowboys on Sunday night away. Then they win at Bills versus Bears.
And then they win after their bye. Their next win every single game. They beat the Patriots, Seahawks, Dolphins, Giants, Redskins, Cowboys, and Giants again.
Mm-hmm.
Their away games, of course, being Giants, Redskins, and Dolphins.
Yep. Yeah.
So basically, they would come into the playoffs on like a 10-game win, 9-game. 9.
Yeah.
9-game win streak.
Yeah, I mean they start the season 4-3 and then finish 13-3.
So yeah.
Yeah, they get hot down the stretch.
So what we're predicting is not only does Wentz get hurt But the backup, who is no longer Nick Foles, comes in clutch again for a third season and leads them to the playoffs. That's the true thing we're seeing here.
No, what I'm really predicting is that Carson Wentz is a good player.
Well, he is, yeah. I think he is. I don't think
Yeah.
that you can count early seasons and like injury-prone early seasons where like when he wasn't injured, he was popping off as like. He's a fantastic quarterback, and I think he'll be a top 5 quarterback for the next decade. Like if you were to rank in the next decade the best quarterbacks, it's probably gonna be they're probably all in the NFL right now.
Like if you're talking about best all-time quarterbacks, but you're ranking them
from 2019 to 2029.
Okay.
In that span, who are the best 5 quarterbacks? They're probably all in the NFL right now.
Well, maybe. You never know. There could be somebody who's drafted next year that turns out to be great,
and maybe like a quarterback like Andrew Luck or Carson Wentz just like suffers from, or like even Aaron Rodgers, maybe one of those 3 just like suffers from injury too much and just will never be the same player.
Well, anyway, that's a debate for the future.
That's why Sam Darnold is my number 1 MVP.
Really, above Baker?
Sam Darnold.
Anyway, let's move on to the G-Men.
We're getting real sidetracked in these.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a short episode. It's not turning out that way.
We're still under an hour.
For now. So the G-Men, they lose at Dallas in week 1.
Yep.
They beat the Bills
at
home. They lose at Tampa.
Yep.
Then they beat the Racists and Vikings.
Oh, man, they look like they might have a good season. And then they lose in primetime to the Patriots.
They lose at the Patriots.
But hey, they beat the Cardinals. They're starting, 4-3, and they only win 1 more game.
They lose at Lions versus Cowboys. At Jets, then they have a bye. Then at Bears versus
Packers.
After
recuperating after
Eagles.
that bye, they go 1-5.
Yep.
Finishing the season strong at a 5-11 record.
Their one win comes against the organic fish tank, the Dolphins, and then they lose at Racists and versus Eagles to end the season. 5-11. What was the Giants' record this past year? Were they
5-11? Yeah.
So they're a 5-11 team last year, and they still get 3 primetime games. This is what bothers me.
I mean, it's just because they're playing the Patriots. So the Patriots get it, the Cowboys get it, and the Eagles get it. Those are all good teams that they have to play.
But it's just...
And they're in New York. So I don't see a problem with it. It's going to be a high viewership rate.
Yeah, it
makes economic sense.
It makes economic sense, but as a football fan, I'd rather see good teams in prime time. Like that week 14 Monday night game. At that point in the season, we have the Giants at 4 and what?
Bad.
We have them at 4 and 6, 7, 8. 4 and 8. And the Eagles at that point in the season, week 14, are...
They only have 3 losses.
Yeah.
It's 14.
So do the math.
Yeah.
They're 9 and 3.
They're 9 and 3, yeah.
Going into that game. That's a very lopsided game. I don't want to see that in prime time. That can be at noon on Sunday.
Well, you don't want to come home after a long day of work only to see the Giants get obliterated?
I mean, seeing the Giants get obliterated is fun, but, like, I'd rather see a competitive football game.
That's fair enough. I don't really want to talk about the Giants anymore. They're bad.
Yeah, let's move on.
I still think they'll look better than what they did this year, but they're bad.
Yeah, let's move on to the Washington Racists.
Good 2-14 team.
Yeah, they're going to be great.
Holy shit, we had them going 2-14?
Yep. Because there was, I remember this. Their only 2 wins come in the division. And when we were doing these predictions, we got almost all the way through Washington without having actually talked about them directly yet, because you know how we do this. And I said,
Yeah.
Bryce, are we on the route to have Washington go 0-16? And then, I mean, at that point, it looked like they might.
And then you were just like,
well,
nah.
yeah,
no.
we had them split with the Cowboys and Giants. So
the Cowboys, they just got to disappoint somehow.
So yeah, the Eagles beat them in week 1. Then they beat the Cowboys week 2. Then they lose.
Then they lose.
They just lose. Yeah.
They lose until you get to week 16.
They
and
lose 12 straight
Giants.
games.
Yeah, they lose
12
Bears,
straight
Giants,
losses.
Patriots, Dolphins, 49ers, Vikings, Bills. Then they go to a bye, get their act together, and lose to the Jets, Lions, Panthers, Packers, Eagles, beat the Giants, and then lose in week 17 in a meaningless week 17 game against the Cowboys.
Am I counting that correctly? Am I doing my math right? That's 12 consecutive losses in the middle of the season.
Man, I can't wait to see if they burst into flames that fast. That's something else. But for contracts, we can put on the next team in the next division.
Okay, but let's wrap up the NFC East first. So, obviously, we have the Eagles winning it as the only competent team in the division.
And the only playoff team.
Yep. Well, presumably.
Yeah.
So
now we're gonna move on to a really good division.
But hang on. So we have the Eagles going 13-3, winning the division. Cowboys 9-7, G-Men 5-11, Racists 2-14. And they don't get the number 1 draft pick because the Raiders went 1-15.
What do you mean we have a lopsided draft?
We'll move on from the NFC East now to the NFC West.
Whoa. What happened to your mic?
Hang on a sec. Okay, am I back to normal?
You are not. It's like your input got changed. Maybe your headset got unplugged. I'm not hearing you. It's all right. All right. Hello, you back? Hello.
Yeah, I'm back now.
There we go.
Yeah, my computer does weird things sometimes.
But regardless, we have the 49ers in the next division.
Yeah, we can move on to the NFC West now.
NFC West.
By the way, you go ahead and start talking about the 49ers. I got to find something.
All right, cool. So the 49ers, they're good. This happened last year. We had them being really good. They sucked because Garoppolo went poopy po. But yeah, that was dumb. They start off strong with 4 wins. They go at the Buccaneers, win, at the Bungles, win, go to they have the Steelers travel to them, and then they whoop their ass. They have a bye week, and then they go into Monday Night Football against the Browns and just clobber them. Go to the Rams Stadium, sadly take that L, but then they go back and they just tear up the NFL, winning against the Redskins, Panthers, Cardinals, Seahawks, Cardinals, Packers, Ravens, Saints, Falcons, Rams, and then week 17 with a meaningless game where they already are locked into the first seed. They start their backups and let the Seahawks take up that W.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about that?
Well, it does bother me when the NFL schedule makers do this, where they put if you look at week 9 and week 11, they have the Cardinals and 49ers playing twice. That always bothers me.
When
teams play twice in 3 weeks. But anyway, yeah, I mean, we always have the 49ers doing well, so this isn't a surprise at all.
We still think that they're good, and they keep improving, so they're going to be real good.
Yeah. So that's the 49ers. So moving on, I guess, to the Cardinals, who have a very different result.
Another 2-14 team. Hello, Redskins 2.0.
Yeah.
They start off the year 2-1. Oh.
They do. They start off 2-1. They beat the Lions, lose at Ravens, and then beat the Panthers at home. And things are looking like, hey, maybe this whole Kyler Murray experiment is working out.
No.
But no. Then they lose 13
Then their
straight.
offensive line collapses, and Kyle Murray gets hurt in the fourth week of the season, leaving them to go 2-14 in a roster that badly needed to.
So to just make sure that we really hammer this home, that they go 2-14. Their losses: Week 4 against the Seahawks, then at Bengals versus Falcons, at Giants, at Saints versus 49ers, at Buccaneers, at 49ers, then the bye in Week 12. Then they lose versus Rams, versus Steelers, versus Browns, at Seahawks, at Rams.
In all fairness, their schedule is not the easiest. Like Seahawks,
their schedule's tough.
Seahawks twice, Rams twice, and 49ers twice. Those are all teams that like have playoff hopes and aspirations. Then they have to play the Falcons, who we have having like 14 wins. They have to play the Browns. Some of these like the shaky ones are like Bengals, Saints, Buccaneers, but even then,
yeah.
So I'm from Arizona, so I want to see him do good, but I just don't believe it. I can't buy into him. I'm out. I fold.
Okay. So moving on to the Rams then. The Rams we have going 13-3.
Be another good team. Hello.
Yeah, so they start out 4-0. They beat the Panthers on the road. They win home against the Saints, at Browns on Sunday Night Football, which should be fun.
That's going to be an entertaining game.
Yep. And then they beat the Buccaneers at home. Then we have them losing at Seattle on Thursday night, beating the 49ers at home, and losing at Falcons. Then they go to London and they beat the Bengals. And they go into their bye 6-2. So pretty solid.
And then they just come out swinging.
They come out swinging. They beat the Steelers on the road. They beat the Bears at home on Sunday night. Another fun game, I think. They beat the Ravens at home in primetime, Monday night game. Win at Cardinals. They beat the Seahawks on Sunday night at home. Win at Cowboys. And then Week 16, an enormous game against the 49ers.
A game that whoever wins this gets first in the division. It gets first in the NFC.
Yeah, because at this point in the season, the 49ers are they're a one-loss team. The Rams are a two-loss team, but the Rams have beaten the 49ers. So if the Rams win, they hold the tiebreak. So that's a massive game, but we have the 49ers winning it. And then the Rams beat the Cardinals to close out the year. So
and they finish in a solid place, one of the best fifth seeds you'll ever see.
Yeah, right up there with last year's Chargers. And in fact, better than last year's Chargers. So, yeah. That's the Los Angeles Rams. And then we can skip talking about the Seahawks because we've already discussed all of their games. Because we've done every other team.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Is it what?
Okay, so the Seahawks.
Yeah. Technically, we have talked about all their games.
We have. So as you already know, because you've been paying such close attention, the Seahawks are 10-6.
And you're just a math whiz who can calculate that.
Right. So we have them
computer watching us.
Again, as you all know, we have them beating the Bengals in Week 1, losing at Steelers, and then they beat Saints at home, Cardinals on the road, and Rams at home on Thursday night. Then they lose at Browns, win against the Ravens at home, lose at Falcons, and win versus Buccaneers. And then they lose at San Francisco before going into their bye. So they go into the bye with what? 3, 4, 5, 6 wins and 4 losses. So they're 6-4 at that point. So they're still playoff hopefuls at that point. Then they lose to the Eagles coming out of the bye on the road, beat the Vikings, lose at Rams, and then they have 3 wins to finish the season at Panthers versus Cardinals and versus 49ers.
10-6. Now they make the playoffs, correct?
No,
that's right. They miss it because
they miss it.
every single playoff team at least has 11 wins, right?
In
the NFC.
Yeah, because the 6th seed, let me make sure.
The 6th seed was the Packers at 11 wins.
Yes. So
each division has at least like an 11-win team.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that everyone thinks they're going to win.
Right. So all right. Don't put the image up on the screen because spoilers. But next time we'll talk about how the playoffs break down. But just to see how the seeding ended up in the NFC, the division winners are the 49ers with the number 1 seed. Falcons. The Falcons get the number 2 seed. They had the same record as the Eagles, but they beat the Eagles head-to-head, so they get the tiebreaker. That means the Eagles are number 3 and the Bears are number 4. The Bears get the division record tiebreaker over the Packers. They finished with the same record. And then the wild card teams are the Rams and Packers. The Rams, of course, being 13-3, get the 5th seed, and the Packers at 11-5 are the 6th seed.
Oh, yes.
And then in the AFC, the Colts are the number 1 seed at 14-2, I believe. Then the Chiefs at 13-3, and I believe they tied with the Patriots, but again beat them head-to-head, so they have the tiebreak. Patriots are the number 3, so not getting a first-round bye for the first time in forever.
But they keep the 12-win season streak alive.
They do.
It's almost a decade long now.
And then the Browns winning the AFC North are the number 4 seed. Wow, that's...
And then you got the Jets in the 5th, right?
No, the Jaguars are 5th.
And then the Jets. Okay, yeah.
And then the Jets are number 6. So that's the playoff picture. And next time we will talk about all of those results, and we'll see who wins the Super Bowl. Only Bryce and I know.
It has been foretold the way it transpires.
Yep, it certainly has. It certainly has. So all right, are we ready to move on from this portion of the show?
I believe so. It seems as though there is one more part of the show that we discuss.
Next time, like, we're gonna have to come up with something once we discuss the playoffs and all of that. We're gonna have to come up with something to fill the middle part of our show with. Like, I really didn't have a plan because I didn't think we'd get this far. Like, I really didn't.
You see, that's the thing. When you have the lowest of expectations, the highest of possibilities. But yeah, I don't know. We could discuss it. Anything comes to mind. Yeah, we'll cross that bridge.
Don't worry. We will have plenty of content for you.
Yeah. But yeah, we got these two.
Could come up with a projected draft for next year.
No, I don't want to. What? That sounds disgusting. What the fuck?
That would be so horrible.
Then we can predict the next year off of that draft. And then the draft for next year before even the season starts.
We could do it. Um. So anyway, I guess we're moving on to music discussion.
We
then.
are. Would you like to start, or would you like me?
Why don't you tell me what you thought about epigrams and interludes first?
This is undeniably the worst album I've ever listened to.
Okay.
There wasn't a song on here. The production on it is horrid and rancid. His voice is so bad. There isn't a single melody on here that I thought, oh, at least he's competent. No, he doesn't know how to sing. He doesn't know how to make a melody. Even when he auto-tunes himself, he's off key. Like, you auto-tune yourself so your voice is manipulated so that it sounds like you're actually, in the key. And you still mess that up. The songs are so just off kilter, and the tone is so weird, and it's like they're trying to be like this weird fantasy element to it. Like, oh, I'm gonna beat my enemies. I'm gonna assault the castle. It's just so. It's like it's such a dumpster. Like, the album cover says it all. What the fuck is going on? Oh my god. There was 60 minutes of this shit. Holy crap, dude. I thought that, like, at one point I thought you were just really mad at me for, like, suggesting, like, some shitty album or something. Like, you just really didn't like the albums I was suggesting you. Like, I don't know if this is some revenge for something I did, but Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, alright? I get it, alright? Wow. Well,
So you really didn't like a single song on this album?
Oh, yeah, there was not a moment on this thing where I was just like, this is bad. This is very bad. Like,
Wow.
there are some people, like, if you're gonna do music, come on, man. Why would you pick synth pop? British synth pop. Jesus Christ. Oh, when you don't actually have right production going on too. Like, this is production, right? That's just handled so poorly. Like, you need a competent producer if you're gonna do synth pop. It's so bad.
All right. I actually like parts of this album. Some of the songs I agree are terrible, but
when I heard
there are a handful that I
fucking
like.
intro, dude, I was just like, no way, this isn't real, right? This is a joke. When he had that weird, like, audio filter on where it sounds like he's in, like, a tunnel or some shit. Like, why? Why? I can officially say the sexual assaults were not the worst thing this guy did. Oh my god. But in
Okay.
any case, how did you like Law Dispute?
Yeah, Law Dispute. Okay, so here's the thing. I listened to it one time, just straight up, just listened to the album in the background while I was doing other things.
Yeah, it's not the best background music.
Then pulled up the lyrics and just read them all without listening to the music. And then I listened to them again while reading the lyrics. And I've got to say that of those 3 runs through the album, my favorite one was the one where I was just reading and not listening.
Really?
Yeah. See,
to be fair,
here's
the
the
timbre of his voice, it's like you can either get with this guy's voice or you can't. It's very whiny, and
I can't. Here's the thing. There's singing, and then there's shouting in a monotone over music.
He's whiny. He's just trying to be emotive as possible. That's the entire purpose of it.
And, like, I understand that. I understand that, and, like, I guess I kind of get what he's trying to do, because the lyrics are, like, incredibly powerful.
Especially King Park. King Park, like, the ending of that song, I think, whether you can get with his vocal delivery or not, the ending of that song is really fucking powerful, I still feel.
Yeah, and there were a couple of songs that I liked towards the end of the album, King Park being one of them. Um, but again, it's like, to me, it just sounds like, for the most part, he's just shouting in a monotone over the top of the music, and it's like, I
It's
can't
spoken
get with
word.
that. Yeah,
That's
but that's not, to me, that's not music. Like, that doesn't sound like music to me.
for
I don't
me,
know.
music is anything, and I use a very liberal term with it. And with this, like, he wrote poetry and he's trying to create a mood with his poetry,
I
and
understand that,
I
but like,
think
then be a
atmospheric.
slam poet. Like, don't.
But but slam poetry is music.
It's not,
It
though.
is.
It's different.
It is.
It's
It is.
similar.
Podcasts are music.
No, they're not.
Yes. Yes, they are. We've made 7 or 8 albums at this point. How do you feel? I do believe that, like, just the spoken word and just being as emotive as possible over these really like the guitars in the background, the harmonic guitars with it, I think are so pretty, and they've, like,
Well,
the
yeah, the music.
instrumentals really captivate the tone with his very abrasive vocal delivery quite perfectly. I
the
just
the
really like it.
instrumentals for the most part are good. It's just, I again, I can't get with the vocal delivery.
They're a very polarizing band, meaning, like, you either really like them because, like, if you can get behind the vocals, like, there's nothing really to hate then. Like, but if you
Yeah,
can't get with the vocals, like, then it's just you can't just be like, yeah, that was okay. I've never heard someone look at Law Dispute and be like, yeah, they're meh.
yeah. I it's unfortunate because I really wanted to like this album because I know that it's one of your favorites.
Oh yeah, it's
Um,
my 4th favorite album.
and I wanted to be able to enjoy this, and I just couldn't.
That's fair. I mean, again, I knew that that's why I tried to get you into Converge and Theo Tellier, because all those and Pup, all these bands, HAJ, they have similar vocal styles to Law Dispute, in that
They do.
they all have these, like, very, like, shouty, poetry, like, written type, anxiety filled, like, vocal deliveries, and that's, like, a lot of that, like, when you show a lot of emotion and create a tone with your vocal delivery, I think there's a lot to take out of that, and I quite enjoy it. But I guess we can go into suggestions. If you could rate this album out of 10, though, what would you say?
Maybe a Well, okay, again, like, if I'm rating everything except for the vocals, it's probably like a 9. If I'm like just rating the instrumentals and the lyrics, it's like a 9. But if I'm rating everything, unfortunately, I think it's probably like a 2 because I just couldn't get into it.
That's fine. Like that again. I've had a lot of people say that too. Like, just why is he doing that? I've had a lot of people also turn around on this album who eventually just, like, they listen to it enough and they're like, listen, the vocals, I can get behind them now. Like, if you're able to, like, let them just kind of affect you emotionally,
By the
I
way,
think it works well. What's up?
did you have me listen to King Park at some point prior to this?
Probably in
'Cause-
that drive with William, where I also showed you the front bottoms, and you guys started
Yeah.
laughing at their. Still sad you guys laughed at the front bottoms. Come on.
The front bottoms I actually kind of got into towards the end of that because once you kind of get used to that, I felt like I could enjoy it. But
Oh yeah.
King Park sounded familiar to me, so I feel like you had me listen to it at some point. But anyway,
Cool. I probably it does sound familiar that I did.
anyway, so moving on to the albums for next time. By the way, I'm assuming you would. Well, what was your rating for epigrams and interludes?
0. I really don't
0?
like any of
Okay.
it. I think it's all
Okay.
bad. Yeah.
Okay, fine. I understand. I'm disappointed, but I understand. Uh, so do you want to go first for next time?
Yeah, I think I got my. Oh God. All right. So, are you aware of a genre of music called post rock? Do you know what post rock
Uh,
is at all?
Not really, no.
So, imagine you're watching a movie, right? And it's a very intense scene, and you start hearing these like very climactic, very long and drawn out rock instrumentals that like have these very like high like when the movie's like at its peak, you're hearing like the background get that way. That's post rock. Post rock is that it's a lot of like build up, a lot of like these really long tracks that build up into these huge climaxes. And I'm gonna show you one of those type of bands. I'm gonna show you one of my favorite albums again. This one has a near and dear to my heart. The album is called F sharp A sharp Infinity by the
Okay.
band Godspeed You Black Emperor. One of the most badass names for a band you'll ever find.
I think you might have played me one of their songs because I remember the name.
Yeah, they're a memorable name. I can attest that I probably have shown you a song by them. Again, like a lot of the bands that I've shown you on car trips, they're gonna come up here.
Okay.
Like just of course they are. So yeah, that's the album I'm gonna suggest to you. It is a longer one. I picked their shorter album, which is my favorite,
Okay.
because a lot of their albums are like 2 hours, 2.5. Picked you the one that's only 3 tracks long, which means it's an hour long.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope you like this. This is a very good. And this is also one of those you can listen to it in the background.
Okay.
So yeah.
Hang on a sec. Are you sure that you said it's just 3 tracks?
Godspeed, F sharp, A sharp, Infinity. You have the Dead Flag Blues, East Hastings, and Providence, and those are the 3 tracks on the album. Sure, they can be broken up into like parts or like subsections, and that's probably what you're seeing. But on Spotify, for example, there's only 3 tracks. Are you looking on? Where are you looking?
I'm just trying to find it right now.
Just F sharp, like the pound sign.
Yeah.
Where do you usually listen to this?
Well, right now I'm looking on Spotify.
Yeah, just F sharp, A sharp. Here, I can show you the link.
Oh, okay. I think I found it. I got it. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta look up the band name. I see what you're getting at.
I got it now. Yep.
It's not like unpopular. Like all these tracks have over millions of listens, except for Providence, I guess, which is longer.
Okay.
But yeah, Dead Flag Blues is one of my favorite tracks of all time. In East Hastings, if you've ever seen 28 Days Later, have you seen that zombie movie?
No.
Well, if you had, in the scene where like the zombies start coming out, and the guy starts realizing something's really fucked up, the song's actually playing in the background. So,
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, and it actually fits the tone real well, because this is an anarchist band. So a lot of these tracks are about like the end of the world and how everything is like gone and we're all blah and how the government is corrupt and all this shit. It's a lot of just. It's supposed to be depressing, climactic music, and I think it's perfect. So, what did you suggest?
Okay, so here's the thing about this sort of exercise of recommending music for me is that you know a lot more just about music in general than I do.
I would say this is a fact.
I I mean, yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
I don't think there's any way you could argue that I know more music than you do. Um, so the problem is that it's hard for me to, I guess, it's hard for me to find albums and artists that I think you may not be familiar with. Um, because as we've mentioned before on this, like my favorite bands and artists are, artists that you've listened to extensively as well. Um, so anyway,
It's
I discovered I discovered a band that I had not listened to before. And so far I've only really listened to their first album, but they're an older band, and I'm going to recommend it to you because I think this album is decent. So anyway, here's the album cover. The album is called Diamond, or excuse me, the album is called Lightning to the Nations, and it's by Diamond Head. So first of all,
what
have you
in
heard
God's name?
have you heard of this before?
No.
You have not heard this before. Okay. Well,
I'm gonna do a. It's
okay.
gonna
So
be. It's gonna be
here's what you'll recognize though. The fourth track on this album is called Am I Evil? And it is originally by Diamond Head, but made famous by Metallica
not
because Metallica
Diamond
covered it.
Head Band.
Also, you're not going to find this album on Spotify. I tried.
What the fuck? This is.
Yeah.
How
So
old is this?
I think it's pretty old. Let me look it up real quick.
Man, your albums are just things.
Yeah, this album came out in 1980, so pretty old. But they when I listen to it, like I hear a lot of similarities to Metallica. And I think that they were a huge influence for Metallica. So to me that's pretty cool. And then of course,
Where the hell did I save it? It's hello.
Obviously Am I Evil is the song that Metallica then covered later on, so that's cool too. Kind of neat to hear the original, at least for me, because I was already familiar with the cover.
Where the fuck? Where is it? It's where the fuck?
Are you okay over there, Bryce?
My head. I can't process this. It was here. Oh, just a minute. Fucking fuck. Shit. Fuck. Yeah, it's Oh, I know why. What the properties? Why did... Oh my god. I know what it did. It didn't save with the right file type, so it wasn't displaying. Even though it's an image. Save image as. It's not a JPEG, dude. I need to make it a PNG. If it is like anything but a PNG, it just doesn't show. There it goes. All right, yeah, those are the two albums. Even the album cover, I'm just like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah. So like I said, I couldn't find this on Spotify, like the full album. So I found it on YouTube, and I'm going to give you the link to the playlist if you want it. So here. But anyway, that's a playlist that is all the songs from the album, so that's where I listen to it. But yeah,
It seemed like
I heard
70s,
this and
early 80s. This seems
I heard this and thought it was interesting, mainly in that it sounds a lot like Metallica to me, which is cool because I like Metallica.
All right. Well.
So yeah, I mean, I guess that's it, unless you
I
have
think
something
that
else to
is
say.
it. Yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I'm sitting here just like, this is gonna be different.
Mm-hmm.
I never like honestly, I never know what you're gonna suggest.
I never know either. Yeah, like I said, I'm going in a very different direction. Maybe I didn't say that, but I'm going in a very different direction from last time, obviously.
Well, yeah, me too. I decided to like, I tried Law Dispute with you. Didn't stick. So let's see if once I suggest Caro Bonito, I hope you like them. Oh my god.
Well, because
that's the one band where I'm just like, I think you're not gonna like them, but they're beautiful.
Your music recommendations so far seem to kind of be mostly related, and like mine
I
are
tried
just
to make them related in that sense because
right.
I knew what they were gonna be.
Well, right, and mine, on the other hand, are just really sporadic and have nothing to do with one another. Because, like I said earlier, it's hard for me to come up with these recommendations. Like I don't have the music library in my head that you do, so I can't. It's harder for me to come
I
up
have a
with these.
playlist that's like with every single album that I like.
I know, but I don't have that. And if I did, the playlist would be a lot shorter than yours.
Yeah, mine's at 4,000 songs.
Mm-hmm.
It's roughly like 400 something albums, I guess. But yeah, I think that wraps up this podcast.
All right.
All right.
So, yeah, that's it for this podcast. This is episode 8.
It's gonna be a 90-minute episode.
Wow, that's our shortest one yet. So this, of course, was episode 8. Next time is the big one, episode 9, where we discuss the playoffs and our predicted outcome. Playoffs.
Talking about playoffs.
Playoffs. Anyway, so yeah, we'll get into that. That'll be fun. Hopefully by that time, the Bucks will have moved on to the Eastern Conference Finals against either Philadelphia or Toronto. So yeah, we'll see you next week, I guess. For Eric Bledsoe, I'm Chris Middleton. Fear the deer.